All right, it's week 2 of the fantasy football season, so it's time for that reminder that kickers are people too. I'm going through and ranking all 32 NFL starting kickers for week 2 of the fantasy season. Let's hop on into it. All right, a couple of more additions to our favorite tier. Start them every week. If you got these guys, doesn't really matter the matchup, just plug and play them. We have Ka'im Fairbairn of the Houston Texans, Chase McLaughlin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, even though he's a little bit wavering, tough first week for him. Harrison Butker of the Kansas City Chiefs, Jake Bates of the Detroit Lions, Brandon Aubrey back in there of the Dallas Cowboys. Liked what I saw from that offense, and Aubrey's banging them out from 60. And speaking of 60, Chris Boswell of the Pittsburgh Steelers, 60-yarders in MetLife. Who could have guessed it? Man is on a tear the last season and a half. And my man, Cameron Dicker, the kicker of the Los Angeles Chargers. So if you got these guys, don't really worry about it. Plug and play. They're going to be more reliable than not for almost every single week of the fantasy season. All right, first up, Nick Folk of the New York Jets. And he had a really solid week 1, 2 of 2 from field goals, 1 from 50 plus, and made all of his extra points. And the Jets offense looked electric with Justin Fields at the quarterback position, but they are taking on the Buffalo Bills this weekend in MetLife. The weather is a little sketchy. Could be rain in the forecast for you. I do think Folk is a solid kicker, but I'm worried that the Jets offense is going to be able to run all over this Bills defense, and they know they're going to have to score touchdowns after Allen putting up 40 plus on the Ravens. So I'm going to put the Folk in the if you have to category. He's pretty reliable, but I'm just not quite sure what the opportunities are going to look like here in week 2 in a sketchy weather condition. Weather could play a factor, especially for an older guy, not going to have as much leg on it. So Folk in the if you have to category, but I do think he could have a promising season ahead. Okay, Tyler Loop of the Baltimore Ravens. Strong rookie debut for him. 2 for 2 for field goals, 1 from 50 plus, 4 or 5 from PATs, and that missed PAT ultimately hurt the Ravens there. But they are going home. They're taking on the Cleveland Browns, and I'm thinking the Ravens are going to put an absolute hurt on Cleveland. But Cleveland's defense is the strongest part of their team. So if the Ravens do struggle, I think they trust Tyler Loop now replacing the legend Justin Tucker. So I'm loving this matchup for Tyler Loop. I think he could be instantly filling in to a spot that we saw from Tucker. He's been very reliable so far. And this Ravens offense is an absolute juggernaut. And they will kick the field goals. Even against the Bills, they kick 2 field goals. So against inferior opponents, they're just going to take their points and not really worry about it. So love Tyler Loop this week for the Baltimore Ravens. Okay, Will Lutz of the Denver Broncos, 2 of 2 in week 1, 2 of 2 on PATs as well. And this Denver offense mightily struggled in week 1. I mean, Bo Nix and them were horrible. Kicking indoors against the spicy Indianapolis Colts. I don't think I trust the Colts this week really at all. I think this is going to be a get-right game for this Broncos offense. I think they're going to be a little bit more inclined to score some touchdowns. So I think Lutz is a fine start this week. I'm not going to rely on him to have a super high ceiling week. I think he's going to be very reliable for you, though. I think he scores a good amount of points, maybe a few extra points, 4 or 5 extra points. Could be a lot of touchdown days because I'm not buying this Colts team just yet. Lutz, very reliable, very solid. I think there's a limited ceiling right now for him at the kicker position with the guys out there, but I'm never going to be upset if I got to start Will Lutz, especially indoors, no weather to worry about. He's going to make the kicks he gets to kick. Okay, Josh Karty of the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Tennessee Titans in Tennessee, and this Rams offense really wasn't doing too much against the Houston Texans defense. Had 2 touchdowns. That was it. So 2 extra points for Karty. I'm going to put the Karty in the if you have to category. This Titans defense is very, very good. You know, I think they're going to play better at home as well. Matt Stafford, little worried about the back. He looked okay, but it's still something to be concerned about, especially what we saw from this Titans defense. So I don't know if we're going to be kicking field goals this weekend in Tennessee. I think it might be extra points or bust for Karty. So if you have to play him, you want to keep him because you trust Stafford, you trust this Rams offense, you can. But I just don't know if he's worth much of a play this week. I think the Rams are just going to be kind of a touchdown or bust team. Go with their defense, not really scoring points. And I don't even think they're going to even attempt a lot of field goals. I think they're just going to be aggressive on 4th down like Sean McVay kind of seems to like to be. So I'm going to be a little bit worried about Josh Karty this week against the Tennessee Titans. All right, Jason Myers of the Seattle Seahawks, Wiley Vet, solid last week, 2 of 2 on field goals, made his one extra point, but it's kind of a tough matchup this week. The Seahawks traveling to the Pittsburgh Steelers, and honestly did not love what I saw from that Seahawks offense. Tried to warn you about Sam Darnold, but this Pittsburgh defense was atrocious, and they were atrocious against the run last week, and the Seahawks can run the football. So I think if you got Myers and you want to stick with him, I think that's totally fine. I think he's a fine start this week. I think they will end up kicking field goals. I think they're going to be able to move the ball. A little worried about that Pittsburgh defense after week 1, but do be aware there is a potential for a total bust. We know how bad Sam Darnold is under pressure, so the passing game may not quite be there for this Seahawks team if Pittsburgh can get after them. But if they are able to establish the ground game, pound the rock, end up getting stopped in the red area, field goal opportunities there. So I think there's a nice boomer bust level for Myers this week. A little too rich for my blood, but if you want to take the risk, I think he's a fine start in week 2. Okay, Riley Patterson of the Miami Dolphins didn't even kick last week, and I'm not touching him. I told everybody, whoever the Dolphins kicker is, don't play him. Don't play him this week either, man. Like, the Dolphins are terrible. They're taking on the Patriots. I don't even know if they're going to get to attempt a field goal, so I'm just not worth the risk for me. I don't want any part of this Dolphins team unless your name is Devon Achane when it comes to fantasy football. So easy sit for me here until we actually get something on tape, or we can even figure out what the Dolphins are going to do from a field goals perspective. Okay, Evan McPherson of the Cincinnati Bengals, nice bounce back after being kind of bad and missing a good chunk of the year last year. Made his 1 field goal attempt, was perfect on his extra points, but the Bengals are traveling to the Jaguars. Jaguars defense put on a solid performance against Carolina, but that's Carolina, and the Bengals offense really struggled in week 1 against Cleveland. We do know the Bengals aren't great when it comes to early in the season, getting things right. I'm going to put McPherson in the fine to start category. I think it's a little bit scary. I just don't 100% know what we're going to see from this Jaguars offense. I don't know what this Jaguars defense, I don't know what this Bengals offense is going to do. Are they just going to be going for it on 4th down? Are they going to have a touchdown barrage like we've seen in the past after a dreadful week 1? I'm just not 100% solid on what we're going to get from McPherson. So McPherson, a reliable name in the kicking game. I just think he's a fine start for fantasy this week. Okay, Brandon McManus of the Green Bay Packers, and the hype train for Green Bay keeps on rolling. McManus 2 of 2 on field goals and made all 3 of his extra points playing on Thursday night. Thursday nights are a little scary. They're taking on the Washington Commanders, who only gave up 2 field goals against the New York Football Giants. So if there are some struggles offensively, the Commanders bow up in the red zone. I think there are a lot of opportunities for McManus. I love this matchup week for McManus. I think this Packers offense is pretty good. Their defense obviously vastly improved with the addition of Micah Parsons. I think they're going to move the football some. I don't think they're going to score in the red zone, so touchdowns going to be at a premium. They're going to kick some field goals this week. I love Brandon McManus on Thursday night. Short week, little prep. It's a perfect storm brewing for him to have an awesome week for us in week 2. Okay, Santos of the Chicago Bears was 1 of 2 on field goals, 3 of 3 on his extra points, did miss the 50-yard field goal at home, and they're traveling to Detroit to take on a very angry Lions team after devastating loss for the Bears. I'm a little bit worried about what we're going to get from the Chicago Bears this week. Tough spot, but that Lions defense looks so bad. Ben Johnson's going to have it drawn up on how to attack this defensive unit. I think they're going to be a little better. They are indoors. They are going to have to kick some field goals, I think. So give me Santos as a fine start this week. It's a little bit scary, but I just don't think he's a desperation play at this point. I think he's kind of a medium ceiling, medium floor kind of guy. Like, he'll probably have another 2 field goal attempts, probably another 2 touchdowns. So nothing too crazy out of Santos. It is concerning that he does not have the leg to kick from distance. Anything from 50 plus, he's probably not going to make it. It's very risky. So inside of 50, he's money. Outside of 50, he's kind of struggling, but it is a good thing he has a head coach who will forego the long field goals and go for it on 4th down to help us out a little bit there. So Santos, a fine start in week 2. Okay, Joey Slye of the Tennessee Titans. We had him in the bench, and he was one of the best kickers in week 1. The Titans defense helping out a ton. 4 of 4 on field goals, made 1 from 50 plus, no touchdowns for him. And they have another tough defensive matchup in the Los Angeles Rams, but they are home, so that is going to help them out a good bit. I think Joey Slye is going to be a fine start this week. I think he's proven that they're going to kick field goals. They're going to attempt the field goals. If the defense can force turnovers, get short fields, help Cam Ward in this offense out, they're going to be better this week. They just couldn't catch the football at all. The Rams secondary also isn't as good as the Broncos defense. You know, it is a nice day when you're going to a worse defense. You play the Broncos, then you play the Rams. Rams are an elite defense, but they're a little bit easier than the Broncos, so I think that helps out a lot. I'm going to ride this wave here. I think he's a good streaming option this week. Now, it could easily blow up in our face and the Titans get shut out and we do absolutely nothing. But if the defense is strong, if Cam Ward and the offense is better, which I believe they will be, there's going to be some opportunities for some field goals here. So Joey Slye, if you're in a pickle here at the kicker spot, could be a really good streaming option in week 2. Okay, Cam Little of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Really strong week 1, 4-4 of field goals, 2 out of 2 on PATs, taking on the Cincinnati Bengals, and we know this Bengals defense, really not great. The Browns had no problem really moving the ball on this team. They played time possession, but a missed field goal and a missed extra point for them. Otherwise, they could have had a nice kicking week as well. So I'm loving Cam Little in this matchup. I'm not 100% sure on this Jaguars offense. Trevor Lawrence wasn't great. You know, if he doesn't throw a terrible I shouldn't say terrible interception. He doesn't throw that interception with an amazing catch, probably has another touchdown. So I'm not 100% sure if the offense and Lawrence are locked in, but this Bengals defense isn't going to give much resistance. I think they're going to be able to move the football, run the ball successfully. So I love Cam Little this week against the Cincinnati Bengals. I think he's going to have another big week, and obviously Liam Cohen trusts him to make those field goals, and we're just waiting for another 70-yard bomb. So Cam Little, loving this matchup. And in fact, I believe in Cam Little so much, I'm heading straight on over to Underdog, taking Cam Little over 1.5 field goals made against the Cincinnati Bengals. And if you guys are new to Underdog, make sure you sign up using the link down below. Promo code THECATCH, you're going to get a free pick 'em for week 2. Take that pick 'em and take Cam Little to make over 1.5 field goals. And if both hit, you're going to automatically double your cash entry. And on top of that, Underdog is giving all new users who deposit with promo code THECATCH a 50% deposit match up to $1,000. And as soon as you play $5 on Underdog, they're automatically going to give you an additional $50 to use towards week 2. And again, new users signing up using promo code THECATCH. Let's bring home that dub in week 2. Okay, Matt Prater taking a red eye on Thursday, walking off winner on Sunday Night Football in one of the best comebacks and football games you're ever going to see. Now with the Buffalo Bills, you know what? Prater 3 of 3 on field goals, 2 of 2 on extra points. Didn't get to attempt a few of those extra points because the Bills had to go for 3 different times. So that's 3 points we left off the board there. But like I said, the weather a little bit sketchy in MetLife Stadium. Could be some rain in the forecast, and this Jets defense was horrible, giving up 30-plus points to that Steelers offense. I think the Bills are going to have the similar type of success, and I think the Bills are going to be a lot more aggressive this week and just be going for it on 4th down because they don't feel much heat from the Jets. So if you have to play Prater, I think you can, but I just don't love this week. Older guy, like I said, old man, going to hurt the distance, bad stadium to kick in, and bad weather to boot. Plus, the Jets defense is so bad. I think the Bills are going to be scoring touchdowns and not attempting field goals. So Prater, great week 1, not going to be a high ceiling guy, I think, for week 2 in fantasy. All right, Young Wei Koo of the Atlanta Falcons. Not even sure he's going to be their kicker by the time Sunday rolls around. But at the time of recording, he's currently on the team. But I'm just not taking this risk. Koo missing that game-winning field goal against the Buccaneers. Not good vibes around Atlanta trying out other kickers there. And plus, taking on the Vikings on Sunday night. Normally a great stadium to kick in, but there has been some real voodoo magic against this Vikings defense with Brian Flores where kickers just don't make kicks anymore, man. I don't know what it is. So I'm just going to avoid Koo this week. I've dropped him personally in my league. I'm looking for some other avenues because Koo, a very reliable and stable kicker for a long time, has had a rocky last year and now a start to this year. So I'm just going to bench him. Not worth the play in week 2. Okay, Graham Gano of the New York Giants. 2 of 2 on field goals, 1 from 50 plus. But this Giants offense makes me want to vomit with Russell Wilson. It was so bad. Now they're taking on a mediocre Cowboy defense who did have some bright spots against the Eagles after the lightning delay. But before the lightning delay, they were terrible. They really didn't do much stopping the run. So I'm going to put Gano here in the if you have to category. Don't maybe think it's a full bench because the Giants probably aren't going to score any touchdowns. So if they do get stopped, they're going to kick field goals. And Russell Wilson is horrendous in the red zone. We saw like 8 straight plays for the Giants inside the 10, and they couldn't get a touchdown. So there is some field goal upside here with Gano, but I just don't really trust this Giants offense. So if you're in a deep league, if you want to take the risk, hope that the Giants kick 5 field goals, and that's their offense for the day, you can play Gano, but at your own risk. Okay, Blake Group of the New Orleans Saints, and the Saints really weren't that bad in week 1 as we thought. He was 2 of 3 on field goals, made his 1 extra point, but they are taking on a 49ers team whose defense looked really strong against the Seahawks in week 1. It is at home, it is in New Orleans, so he's not a full bench. He's usually a reliable and solid kicker, but I'm going to put him in the if you have to category. I'm a little concerned that this Saints offense maybe was just playing a Cardinals team that I'm not super high on, so they could struggle once again to move the football because this 49ers defense, everybody's injured on offense. They're going to have to step up and keep the Saints from scoring any points out there. So play at your own risk. He does have some upside there. Like I said, a reliable kicker most weeks, especially at home indoors. But I am concerned about the Saints offense versus this 49ers defense. Okay, Matt Gay of the Washington Commanders, 3 of 3 on extra points, no field goal attempts for him. Playing on Thursday night at Lambeau Field against Green Bay. Again, Green Bay's defense is rocking and rolling now with Micah Parsons in there. A lot of hype. The Green Bay did give up some points, though, to Jake Bates. They were able to kick some field goals. I'm going to put him in the fine to start category. Thursday night games are weird, especially for the road teams. I do like this Commanders team. I do like this Commanders offense, but they weren't super crisp against the Giants defense, who has a very good pass rush. I do think they will be able to move the ball, but the question is touchdowns versus field goals. Could we see another 1 field goal, maybe 2 extra point game from him, and the Commanders walk away with a nice win there? So I'm going to put Gay in the fine to start category. He's got some reliability there. He's got some experience, but just kind of a weird feeling out here on a Thursday night in week 2 of the fantasy season. Okay, big game, Chiefs-Eagles, and Jake Elliott of the Philadelphia Eagles only had 1 field goal in week 1, but it was from 50 plus, made all of his extra points. And this is going to be a fun physical game. I think that Chiefs secondary is a bit of concern. We saw the Chargers move the football on him, but the Eagles are ultra aggressive. They do tend to forego field goals and go for the touchdowns here. So I think Elliott is a fine start. I hope there is some upside where the Eagles play it a little bit safer, but the last time we saw these 2 teams on a field goal, they didn't need to kick any field goals because the Eagles walked up and down the football field against the Kansas City Chiefs. So Elliott, a fine start for this matchup. Not a great place to kick for road kickers, Arrowhead, so there is some concerns there. We've seen Elliott miss some kicks. He just doesn't quite also have the distance like he used to. He used to have one of the biggest legs, but he is getting up there. The leg goes with time. So a fine start for week 1. Eagles offense good, Chiefs secondary bad, but the Eagles much prefer to score a touchdown and go for it on 4th down than settle for the 3. Okay, Ryan Fitzgerald of the Carolina Panthers made all his kicks last weekend, 1 for 1 on field goals, 1 for 1 on extra points, but they're taking on the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm just really concerned about this Panthers offense. They were awful in week 1, and the Cardinals defense was okay against the Saints. You know, they did give up some points, give up some yards, but I just don't think it's worth the risk here. I'm not sure what we're going to get out of Bryce Young in this offense. I mean, good Lord, it looked a lot like week 1 last year. The alarm bells are going off for me in Carolina. I just don't want to touch Fitzgerald. I don't want to touch the Panthers in fantasy. Maybe Chuba Hubbard, probably Ted McMillan, but other than that, kind of a stay away from me. So don't play Fitzgerald unless, just find somebody else. Find somebody else. Please don't play Fitzgerald until we can really get a concrete idea that the Panthers can actually move the football. Okay, Spencer Shrader, the breakout star of the week. I didn't think this Colts offense would be able to do anything at all, but I didn't account for how bad the Miami Dolphins were. Shrader, 4 for 4 on field goals, 3 for 3 on extra points. The Colts scored every time they touched the football in week 1, but they have the Denver Broncos defense coming to town, and I think this is a much taller task. But I do think Shrader is a fine start in week 2. He's shown the ability to make kicks, be reliable. They are at home again. That is a big help. not only at home, but it's also indoors. And this Broncos defense just gave up 4 field goals to the Tennessee Titans. They didn't give up anything else, but that was also helped by the bad Broncos offense. So if the Colts defense can force some turnovers, give them some good field positions, the Colts aren't going to be able to move the football against the Broncos, and they'll have to settle for field goals and hopefully settle for some longer field goals to give us the attempt. So I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here and say, if you scooped them up on waivers, if you want to ride the high, I think you can roll the dice and start Shrader this week. I don't know if his ceiling's anything crazy, but a couple of field goals, maybe an extra point on there, a decent week for you. So Spencer Shrader, fine to start this week. Okay, Szmyt took a Szmyt on the Cleveland Browns fans' hopes and was terrible against the Cincinnati Bengals. Missed a field goal, missed an extra point. This is easy. Bench him. Don't play him. Browns are playing the Ravens. Ravens defense is bad. The offense looked okay with Joe Flacco. Don't do it. Don't put yourself through it. I'm not about that life. Sit Szmyt. We'll figure it out. I'm not even sure if he's going to be the kicker much longer here in Cleveland. Okay, my man, Will the Thrill Reichard. Actually, a pretty solid week 1. You know what? 2 field goals, 1 from 50 plus, from 59 in Soldier Field. That's a big time here. And he made his extra point. Coming back home, taking on the Atlanta Falcons, kicking indoors, always a big plus. Kevin O'Connell trusts his kicker. And we saw this Vikings offense really struggle in the first 2.5 quarters, 3 quarters of this game, but lit it up in the second half. They went for 2 a couple times, so that was some left points off the board. I love this matchup this week for Will Reichard. He's a very reliable kicker. He seems to be healthy, and they're taking on a Falcons defense who did a pretty decent job against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, got some red zone stops, and I think that's the area of the field where the Vikings might end up struggling the most. And that's what teams do when you have a young quarterback in there. And Kevin O'Connell is going to just take the points with his defense out there. He trusts his defense to get stopped. So I love Will Reichard this week on Sunday Night Football against the Atlanta Falcons. Okay, Daniel Carlson of the Las Vegas Raiders, 2 of 3 from field goals, 2 of 2 on extra points. His only miss, though, was from 50 plus, did make one from 50 plus in some unideal weather conditions in New England. Coming back home, taking on this Chargers team who just spent, last week in Brazil. So kind of an interesting, weird matchup. Late Monday night. Late kickoff for them. And this Raiders offense looked good. The Geno Smith experiment with Pete Carroll seems to be working, man. They moved the football really well. This Chargers defense was very good, though, against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I think they might struggle a little bit to move the football. I'm going to put Carlson in another fine to start category. I am a little bit concerned. We didn't see any of the run game against New England, and the Chargers ate up that Chiefs run game. So I just don't know if the Raiders are going to be able to run the football, and that's something you're going to have to be able to do in this league. Teams are going to start dropping off and playing max coverage against Geno Smith, and Geno Smith just ain't that kind of quarterback, especially at this day and age. So Carlson, a fine start. I do like him at home. They are indoors, and they are willing to kick it from deep. Pete Carroll seems to still trust him. Not the most accurate kicker, maybe not the most reliable, but he does seem to have a lot of opportunities, especially from distance. So General Carlson, a fine start, but not ideal for me here in week 2. Okay, rookie Andy Borregales in his debut, 2 of 3 from field goals, 1 of 1 on PATs. But the Patriots offense really struggled against this Raiders team, and I didn't love what I saw from Drake May, and I'm a big Drake May stan. However, they are taking on the Miami Dolphins, who are terrible. But the Patriots are also notoriously bad in Miami for some reason, especially in September. I'm going to put them in the if you have to category. I just don't think it's worth the risk here. I know the Dolphins are bad, but if the Dolphins are so bad, the Patriots are going to score some touchdowns. It's a weird game. This could be a very low-scoring game. And again, I don't love going in on rookie kickers, especially, it's outdoors. It's going to be hot. It's going to be a weird football game. I don't know what to judge. Maybe it was just a complete fluke for the Dolphins. Don't really think so. Maybe it was a fluke for the Patriots, but I think this is going to be a defensive struggle, and we may only see a touchdown here, and they win the game 7-0. I don't know, but I want to see more from him before I'm comfortable putting him in my fantasy lineup. Okay, newly minted Eddie Pineiro for the San Francisco 49ers. They are taking on the New Orleans Saints. And Pineiro was pretty solid last year. Didn't have a team, though. Wasn't in camp with anybody. They replaced Jake Moody with him. I'm going to put him in the fine to start category. We're running out of room here. These beautiful men are stacking it up here. But I think this is a fine to start category. The Niners are probably going to be without Brock Purdy. They're going to be without George Kittle. It's going to be a weird game. It's going to be a weird game. They're playing a Saints team who wasn't horrible, but they're still not very good. If they are able to move the football with Matt McCorkle-Jones, they are going to have to settle for field goals. I think it is indoors. It's a place he's kicked a lot. He was with the Panthers, like I said, so he's used to kicking in that building. That is a help out for me. And the Niners, maybe not going to be getting touchdowns, might have to settle for field goals, and they're going to take every point they can against an inferior opponent on paper in the New Orleans Saints. So a fine start for me here. A little bit scary, but if he's out there, you needed a replacement. You had Moody. There's nobody out there. Pineiro, go ahead, plug him in, roll the dice. I think he's going to be just okay for you guys this week. Okay, and Chad Ryland of the Arizona Cardinals wrapping it up. And Ryland was actually, you know what? Not too bad for us in week 1. 2 of 3 for field goals. Did make a 50-yarder, but he was also perfect on his extra points. So there is some work there to be done. I want a little bit more reliability from him. He was nails last season for us, but they are at home and they're taking on the Carolina Panthers, who were just abysmal. Gave up a ton of fantasy points to Cam Little. I love Ryland this week. I think this is a Panthers defense who is still awful. Cardinals offense had some moments in the first half against the Saints. Really struggled in the second half. I don't think they're going to have that problem this week. But if they do struggle, they'll struggle in the red zone. We'll kick field goals because, like I said, on paper, inferior opponent. Not going to be as aggressive. Defensive head coach also not as aggressive. With Gannon, they will take their points when they can get them. So I'm loving this matchup for my man Ryland here in week 2. But that's going to do it for us this week. Let me know down in the comments below. I'll be answering all of your kicker questions. If you got any matchup questions, I'll be happy to answer for them. We got all the fantasy football content you could ever need. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on a thing. Check out the links down below. Again, like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see y'all tomorrow.